Hey everyone, I'm Danny and welcome to Wizardry Workshop. Today we're going to be doing a very fun and amazing looking DIY. It is for this, which is obviously The Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore by Rita Skeeter. I think this thing turned out just so good. There's even some readable pages in here in the very center. It's just a prop replica, so I didn't put stuff on every single page. Just those certain pages that you do see in the movie. So this is made to look as much like the actual movie prop as I possibly could at home. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We do a whole bunch of Harry Potter DIY projects on here and unboxings. I try to do a new, fun, usually super easy DIY each week, just for you guys so that you can have something fun to do over the weekend. But without any further ado, go ahead and check out the description box below for a list of all the supplies and downloads you're gonna need in order to make this DIY, and let's get started. All right, so we have some pages to print out here. I printed mine with sort of a cream natural paper color texture back here because that's what usually books don't have, like novels and stuff like that don't have just plain white. It's usually kind of a little bit of an off-white. Also, especially if the book is a little bit older, that's what it's gonna look like. So here's the way it would go. Just kind of hold it like this and make sure you've got them in the right order. You want Dumbledore on the very first page like this, and then we want the title page next. And then from there, you can take this text block over here and set it aside. We've got those first two pages, and then you need to put a whole bunch of paper in between. I printed a whole bunch of blank sheets with that kind of off-white color in it. This is 125 sheets right here, which are gonna go in between. We can put these interior pages right on top of that. So what you have is the Dumbledore's image page, Dumbledore's photo in the very front, followed by this one, which is the copyright page and the book title page, and then you have a whole bunch of blank pages. We're going to have some readable pages here in the center. So this is more like you can draw or write on all those other pages if you want. You could turn this into like a cool sketchbook or something. We are going to be cutting this whole thing in half. I'm gonna grab this clamp. This is a pretty strong clamp that can clamp down on this. We just want to make sure that everything is nice and even and straight. There we go. So now we've got this big chunk of paper clamped together. We want to cut it directly down the center. So this is 11 by 17 paper. I also have an 8.5 by 11 version. Either way, you're going to want to cut it right down the center. So this would be 8.5. For me, since this is 11 by 17 paper, that would be 8.5 inches over. You're gonna need a big paper cutter for this. You might have to go somewhere to use one, but I have one, so that's what I'll be using. I don't know if I've ever cut this many pages, but I've got it set up there, 8.5 inches over, so this should cut right down the center of the pages. As you can see, the clamps go on the outside so that when this cuts, you don't get a whole bunch of loose papers falling off that end. So I'm just going to pull the lever down and cut the paper. And there we go. I have the paper cut directly in half right there. We can take these clamps off, and if we flip this side over, you'll see that we've got page 461 right here. And if we flip this side over, that's 460. So we just want to make sure that we get these in the right order. So 460 and 461 should be facing each other. And we're going to put this block right on top of the other one. And make sure that they are all shifted to this side. So this should be flat right here where all the pages got cut. So now we're going to start the binding process, and we're doing perfect binding, which I have not done on my channel yet. All the binding I've done so far has been stitching. we're going to do perfect binding here, which is glue. You're going to want to clamp these together on the edge right here. So you want to put this in a book press. I'm just using a couple of boards, some of these vices. And now this is what it looks like. Next, we're going to need some PVA adhesive. And I'm grabbing a paintbrush here, and I am just going to brush a thin coat over the spine here. So that's one coat. We're going to let that sit and dry. And if you are a little impatient like me, I'm going to use my heat gun to help it dry a bit faster. And once it's, dry enough that you can touch it and it doesn't actually come off, it still can be a tiny bit sticky, that's fine. We're going to do coat number 2. And then we will do our 3rd coat. All right there. So now I'm just going to let this sit for like an hour or so, and then we'll continue. And while we wait for that, we can start on the cover. So I am going to foil this cover. If you're not doing the foiling, you don't have to worry about this part. When you do foil, you have to use 2 different printers because the background is printed on an inkjet, and then everything that you want to foil is printed on top of that print with a laser printer. So as you can see, that's where that shine is. That's that laser toner, which the foil is going to adhere to. But as you can see, it doesn't match up. So I needed to do some registration marks on a page and get things to line up first. So I've got my light table out here. Yes, I did get a new light table and I love this thing. So here we go. I've got my laser print on the bottom with these registration marks here that I made. And then this is my inkjet print. And I'm just going to line up the pages with each other. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but it doesn't line up. It's centered about the same, but then the laser print is actually down a bit more. So I'm just going to take a pencil and mark where the bottom of that laser print is here. So now I can kind of adjust the positioning of my inkjet print so that when I do the laser print on top of it, it's going to match up. And then after doing all the registration marks, as you can see here, it lines up almost perfectly. That's acceptable to me. It's slightly, ever so slightly off, but it's totally worth taking the time to make sure everything lines up between the 2 printers before doing this, because it's going to look a lot better, a lot more professional. This is printed on cardstock, 11x17 cardstock, and we've got the end paper printed on this side as well. So I did all these prints individually. I printed this cover with inkjet. I printed the part that I wanted to foil in black with my laser printer, and then I fed it back into my laser printer on the other way to do the end paper on this side. So that is that. First thing we want to do is foil it. For this, we will use our Mink foil application machine. And you also need one of these protective plastic folders, also from Mink. But as you can see, it's not big enough to actually fit the 11x17 print. So that's fine. We're just going to trim off some of this white on the top and bottom to send that through. So now that should be big enough to go in the folder. Yes, it is. One thing to note, if any of the toner is exposed like this to the folder, it will stick to the folder. So I'm going to put just a piece of paper in there over this so that it doesn't stick. You are also going to want to cover up this disclaimer part at the top because that is also toner and it will stick to your folder. Now it's time to get into the foiling. So the the print that Mina Lima sells uses, if you get the premium one, it's silver foil, and then Rita Skeeter's name is in green foil, and so are some of the stars. But the movie prop, I have watched the scene and paused it and taken screenshots, and I swear it looks like gold foil in the movie prop. So I I'm going to use gold foil for Rita Skeeter's name. I also printed out a version that, you know, doesn't have the black for the foil. This is just a flat version. So if you don't have a foiling machine, you can use this one instead. Also, I have a version, this version, that doesn't cut this shape out here to show Albus behind the page, which is what we're going to do. If you don't have the means to cut it or don't want to, you can use this one where Albus is just printed right on there. But I'm using this to know where the silver foil goes and where the green foil or gold foil goes. I've got all the foil in the right places. This was really tedious, so I hope it turns out good. I've never done multiple foil colors on the same thing before, so we'll see. Let's send this through and check it out when it comes out the other side. All right, here is the result. Pretty cool with the gold and the silver foiling. Unfortunately, I still don't have any really good professional looking way to score this. I'm trying different things, but for now we're not going to score this. This is what the cover is going to look like. But we do have to cut this shape out so that we can reveal Dumbledore behind that. For that, we're going to be using our Cricut. And I also printed this out and cut it down to the exact same size and made sure it was all lined up so that this picture of Dumbledore I know is in the exact same spot if I measure down and over from this top right corner. And I'm going to use this to test cut with my Cricut first before I actually cut my cover, because I want to make sure that that shape is in the exact right spot. Now this text block or book block, the inner pages, is ready to come out. It's all dry. So let's take a look and see how it turned out. It's looking pretty good. It's a little bit warped around, around the edges here, but hopefully I can flatten that out with my book press. We're going to give that a try. Again, I don't want to like totally squish and ruin the spine. We want it to stay that same size. We just want to straighten it out. Doesn't look like it's not going to get perfectly straight. There's still going to be a tiny bit of warping on the edges there, but maybe that's not going to be quite so visible once we get the cover on it. And luckily, my very first measurements were perfect for that hole. Like that, it lines up absolutely perfectly. Now all we need to do from here is find where our score marks should be for this cover so that it fits perfectly. So Dumbledore is not exactly centered, unfortunately. So I didn't actually fold, I just kind of bended it and made a couple folds outside of the artwork. That way I can go in here and score where those folds are. So I just put my ruler up to where those two little creases are that I made at the top and bottom, and then I'm going to use my Cricut scoring tool to score the paper. So now we have it scored and folded. So here, the next thing we want to do is we're going to want to score it just a couple more times. It's going to be 1/8 of an inch in toward the cover from this score line and in toward the back cover from this score line, just 1/8 of an inch over on each side. Now you should have a very nicely folded cover with all your score marks and everything, and it should fit perfectly right around your inner pages, your text block here. I'm having a little trouble with Dumbledore there. He doesn't want to be centered. So I can either go ahead and do it with him a little off center, or I can try and fix it. I think I'm going to try and fix it. You can tell he's over just about as much as these two blocks of text are not completely cut through the middle. So he's over about that much. That's why he doesn't line up. I just printed another page of Dumbledore. I can cut off from this side about maybe 1 inch over from where Dumbledore is right here. I don't need all this extra paper on this side. I just need Dumbledore's page. So we'll go ahead and trim this off to make it easier to line up. And instead of having a completely off Dumbledore, we're going to try and line him up a bit better. There we go. Now he's centered. That is perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to cut about 1/4 inch over from this fold where he is lined up. I want it to overlap with the spine. I want it to fold over the spine a little bit by about that little 1/4 inch right there. We can take the page that wasn't quite right and we can just go ahead and tear that out. And then what we want to do is glue the new page onto the spine. We will clamp it, get some more of this PVA glue. I'm going to use a smaller brush this time, and I'm just going to brush this page onto it. I'm going to actually put glue under that fold and on top of it. Take that fold away from the spine like this, and I'm going to take my PVA glue and put a little coat of it underneath. And then we can fold this down onto that coat of glue. And then I'm going to put another little coat of glue on the top just to sort of seal that page on there. There we go. As you can see, that's a pretty simple fix. And now Dumbledore's going to be just in the right spot. With our cover wrapped around the text block exactly where we want it, we can clamp that on just to be absolutely sure. What we're going to do is measure the book. It should be 5 1/4 by 8 1/4. That's the size that I went with, and it looks like mine is going to end up being exactly that. But depending on different circumstances, yours may be a little bit different. So yours might not be quite 5 1/4 by 8 1/4. So I really do recommend measuring it first before we do any cutting or gluing or anything else. Another thing that the movie prop has, I noticed, is a kind of a red, what looks like a red ribbon, like a deep red ribbon like this, that comes out of the spine, and it can be used as a bookmark in the book. So we're going to add that before we glue the spine on, obviously, because this ribbon goes behind this. And then we also have to cut this top cut, at least just that top cut, before we do the ribbon, because we don't want to cut the ribbon off, obviously. So yeah, let's do that top cut first, and then we'll do the ribbon, glue the spine on, and then we can cut everything else. Okay, so I went ahead and cut that down to size. But before I do any more cutting, I want to glue this thing together because I want to make sure everything lines up exactly like it should. I am going to need a couple pieces of scrap paper. We're going to line up the scrap paper with the outer score that we made. You know how we made 2 score lines here against the spine? We want the one that's outside of the actual spine score line. We're also going to need some masking tape. So there, now we've got this ready to go. This is perfectly lined up for gluing our spine. We masked off the rest of the spine, or the rest of the cover, with these pieces of paper so we don't get glue anywhere we don't want glue. And then the next thing we want to do is take the ribbon, and the ribbon is going to go just right up the center of the spine here, just like that. We also want to mask off the top of the ribbon right where the top of the book was cut, just like that. That way we don't get any glue on the ribbon outside of that cut. You don't need to cut this end of the ribbon yet because we want to make sure it's long enough once the book is cut completely. So the next thing we do is apply glue. And we're going to apply it with our brush just like we did when we bound the book. Also, try and get underneath that ribbon. I totally forgot about that. Once you have a nice even coat on there, we're going to remove the masking paper that we put on here. You can also apply a little more glue to the spine here itself, just for a little extra adhesive. And now put the cover on the book. And it should fold right over it. Make sure you line it up perfectly with your cut that you already made here at the top. You want that to line up. You can also use a bone folding tool or something to flatten out those glued parts and flatten down the spine as well. You can go ahead and open this as well and make sure that there's no glue on the inside, like peeking out. It should open where that inner score is. That's where it should fold. So make sure you do that too. And that's looking pretty good. Now let's wait just about 20 minutes or so, maybe even a half hour. I just want to make sure that this part is dry enough before we do any more cutting or anything else to this book. Next, we're going to take this over to our paper cutter and we're going to trim it down to the size that we measured out earlier. And now that we have this book trimmed down to size, so I'm going to open it up to the very middle page. Remember, it was 460 and 461. And I'm going to put that bookmark ribbon right down the center there. And then you just want a few inches of extra ribbon here at the bottom. I'm going to cut the end at like a slight angle here, just like that. But there is one last thing that we're going to do to this to make it just like the movie prop. So the movie prop itself has green edges to all the paper here. We will need some scrap paper, lime green folk art, matte. You don't want it glossy, you want it matte. We're going to use that. We've got a paintbrush here, and we're also going to use the book press just to keep it nice and steady. So the book is going to go in here, and the scrap paper is going to go in here as well, just to make sure that we don't get any of the paint on the cover that we printed. So we want that piece of scrap paper on the bottom there, and then this piece of scrap paper right along the top. I've got the cover on the front and back masked off by that paper, and then I have this part visible right here. And you've probably already guessed it. Yes, we are going to put a very thin, light coat of this green paint on the edge of the book there. I mean very thin. Thinner than you did the glue. You just want enough to color those pages. And once you've got your thin layer on there, you want to take your brush without any paint on it, or with very minimal, just a dry brush, and sort of wipe away any globs that might be there. And since this is such a thin layer of paint, it's going to dry quick. You can also use your heat gun or a hair dryer or whatever to dry this, but as you can see, I can touch it. It's not coming off on my fingers. It's now safe to take that out of the book press. And this is what it should look like right there. Now we're going to do that to the top and the bottom as well. When you do the top edge, make sure you tuck the ribbon away so that you don't get any paint on it. Now there's one more thing to do. We've got to make sure that all these pages separate like they should. So you're going to have to just flip through page by page and separate these pages so that the paint doesn't keep them together. And for the final touch, we are going to go back to our light table here. We just need a simple notepad like this. And this note to Batilda Bagshot, and we're going to recreate the prop from the movie that was paper clipped to the book. So basically all we're going to do is put this down on our light table, rip a sheet out here, and then copy the text over. I know you can't see it very well in the camera, but that's all we're doing. Just taking a marker and tracing that so that you have the right handwriting and everything. If you want to get really fancy with it, you can use a quill, but we're also going to fold it in half like this, and that's exactly how it looks in the movie. And when you're all done, your book should look like this. Let me know what you guys thought of this DIY. This was one of the most fun DIYs I've done in a long time, and I think it turned out looking wonderful. I think this looks like a movie prop. It just turned out great. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I do also give away every single thing that I make on this channel. Every video I host a giveaway for the prop that I made. So if you would like to enter for a chance to win this prop replica, go ahead and check out the description box. There's a giveaway link down there. You're also going to find my 70K giveaway, which we are coming in really close to that. We are at 69,000 subscribers plus a couple of hundred, so we just need a few hundred more and we will be at 70K. That 70K giveaway is for the Accio box book covers, which are currently no longer available, with no plans for Accio to ever make them again. So if you want to get your hands on them, you're either going to have to buy them secondhand or enter my giveaway. And I'm also giving away each hardcover Harry Potter book that these covers go on. You get the full set plus all the covers and all the books. So if that's something you're interested in, check out that giveaway link in the description box below. I do have some giveaways that are coming to a close. I'll be announcing those winners very soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.